Welcome to the program. This is Tiger Singleton, and I'm doing a live broadcast. So if you're watching right now, then you are probably watching the recording. So check the timestamps to see when we actually begin, which I imagine will be between 5 and 7 minutes from now. Other than that, this might be a bit of a wild ride. So I'm going to go live on some other platforms and have some folks join us. And I'm actually a little bit late getting started here. And we're live. Welcome. Apologies for my tardiness. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. I assume everything sounds good. Welcome, Christine. Good morning, Elizabeth. Good morning, Lee. Good morning, Jennifer. Okay. We will start here in just a few. Gosh. I'm happy you're here too. Although we might be celebrating a little bit early because this topic today is going to be pretty playfully aggressive. But I imagine if you're coming back for more, then you're okay with that. Antibiotics. Okay. Okay. Sometimes when I start these videos, I get super sleepy. My goodness, the unending stream of emails. All right, you guys ready? These things we just got to jump in and do. Welcome to the program. My name's Tiger, and I do this thing where I do a live video and see what comes out of my mouth. So that's what's going to happen here, where we have a title, something to dive into, and I'm going to reference some of what I wrote in my email yesterday. I think it's such a fantastic topic, and it's so close to my heart. Maybe let me address who's this for, and we might save ourselves some disappointment. You can turn this off if it's clearly not for you. Who's this for? Ideally, it's for me, because that's all I'm doing is I'm saying things that I need to hear. But other than that, it's for people like me who recognize that there are two distinct paths in this life. And again, I'm just making this up, so don't take it seriously. But the two paths are living a life that follows what the world wants you to do, and then living a life that is determined to follow what is deeply sincere for what you are. Now, oh my gosh, there's so many things we can get into here, and I'm just going to ramble. I thought it might be a little structured, but I might just ramble. Why would this be difficult for the path of people who just want to do what the world wants them to do? Well, partly the reason we get so caught up in living a path that isn't our own is because we're desperately trying to avoid some internal truths, and we are simultaneously holding on to a lot of impossible expectations, impossible hopes and dreams that revolve around the assumption that if I can just do what other people want me to do, then I'm going to get what I want from other people. Right? This is the conditioning that we've all had growing up, which is if you can just be how other people want you to be, then one day they'll love you. Right? If you can just follow the path that somebody set out for you, then you're going to get the prize. We've been told that the prize revolves around acquiring something out there, whether that's approval from other people or whether that's some sort of worldly possession. People will say, okay, well, if you want to be happy, if you want to be respected, whatever, then you need to do this, 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 and this, and this. And so we have a lot of these, I guess we can just call them hopes and dreams, that if we can just be what other people think we should be, do what other people think we should do, then somehow it'll all work out. And I'm assuming that those who are watching this have played that game. and have experienced firsthand that, wait, this isn't working. And then that leads you on some sort of inward journey, self-inquiry or spiritual path, where you're wondering what's really going on here. Why is this not working? And you start to realize how disconnected you are from yourself. Like, I don't even know myself. I don't even know what I want. I don't even know where I'm going. And if I do, I don't really want to go there. I'm just going there to please my parents. I'm just going there because I want the world to like me. And so we're completely disconnected from our own authenticity. And that can be quite painful. And so those that are looking at this other path, which is getting more in touch with yourself, getting more in touch with what's profoundly sincere and true for you, and recognizing, oh my goodness, what we recognize is that, wait, this life is an epic adventure for me to go on. This life is an opportunity for me to discover the depth and delight of not only what I am, but what life is as a whole. And of course, you are a part of that whole. And so what is sincere within you is sincere within life, because you are that life. And I guess one of my intentions with talking about this topic, which maybe I should introduce, it's something about when self-love becomes self-sabotage. I'm addressing a common misinterpretation or misunderstanding about the concept of self-love, which can quickly become a tool we use to avoid the very real challenges we need to go on. And I guess to illustrate this, I can just share my experience from last week. And let me say, these issues that I'm going to be talking about, maybe we call the unconscious tendencies. I'm only talking about them because I'm a master at them. Right? I'm a master at times deceiving myself and convincing myself of bullshit when really there's a deeper discovery to be seen. And so I'm not necessarily calling other people out. I'm just sharing my own nonsense. But last week I was lying on the couch feeling a little bit defeated, a little bit discouraged, just super busy, lots of things to do. Some places I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels, just natural human stuff. And I was laying on the couch and I noticed a narrative going on in my mind, which its tone was very kind and loving, kind of just inviting me to stay here on the couch and let go of everything and not let these other things be important, which, you know, in some regard is fantastic. But what I noticed was that there was this element of avoidance in that self-dialogue where I effectively was making excuses to not do the difficult things and to not push through some self-imposed limitations. And maybe a good way to illustrate this is you encounter a struggle or a challenge and it exposes your limitation. And because you don't want to see that limitation, you come up with all sorts of fantastic excuses about why you don't need to pursue that objective. And when you have a lot of spiritual language, when you have a lot of spiritual language in your mind, it's easy to use that language in a way that justifies um, not fully showing up in your human. And this is really what this video is about. And as I'm rambling here, I'm just realizing that I'm just rambling. Feels a little incoherent, but I guess that's the flavor. That's what you get. And you can piece it together and hopefully it'll make sense for you somehow. But sometimes I do these videos and I start talking and it's like one of these days I'm going to properly prepare for this shit. But that doesn't seem to be happening so much. But maybe that has set the foundation a little bit when concepts of self-love be used as means of self-sabotage. And what this led me to as I laid there on the couch was this question of, wait, is this self-kindness? Is this self-love? Or am I avoiding being radically honest with myself? And that was a profound question for me to ask, which then led me to ask, what's the most honest thing I could say to myself? Right? Not necessarily on the surface of what's the most kind and what's the most loving. What's the most honest thing I can say about myself? And what I realized was, in appearances, it wasn't so kind. But what it was radically honest. And the conversation went something to the effect of coming to terms with a genuine and honest dissatisfaction I had with myself as it relates to cutting myself short and not showing up in a way that I would really like to show up. It's kind of like saying I want to be the type of person who does what they say they're going to do. And you can make all sorts of excuses about why you don't, and you can use lots of flowery language around it. But at least for me, when I get honest with myself, it's like, wait, that's not really how I want to show up though. And also, as it relates to getting really honest with myself, I saw this tendency to disregard the very real human longing for what I would like to experience. But because it's challenging and difficult, I would talk myself out of wanting that. Does that make sense? This can't just be my experience, can it? Because it's difficult, because I've been maybe trying in that direction and I encounter failure or I encounter something that's not working, I can effectively trick myself into thinking that's not really what I want to experience, even though that desire constantly comes back around again. So clearly there's something within me that desires that experience. And so what the mind tends to do, and oftentimes in its kind and comforting voice, is it leads me towards something that we're going to call comfort. And this is where it might be tricky for the viewer. And I say that because I know when it would have been tricky for me to hear this. There was a time in my life where I thought the goal was comfort. I in some way wanted to construct my life so that I always remained comfortable, which is also like saying I wanted an easy life. I thought that was the prize. But then when I look back at my journey and I question those things that I am most grateful for, the learnings that have had the greatest impact on my life, that allows me to live with more love, compassion, and freedom, I can't find a single instance where it was learned through comfort. Meaning, all of those came by experiencing something that was challenging, something that was hard. And it's those things that I am most grateful for. And so, if the things that I'm most grateful for came by way of doing hard things, why would I not want to become someone who's capable or more capable of doing hard things? And isn't it going in the opposite direction if I am someone who is under the assumption that the prize is comfort? That's like it's running away from deeper opportunities to grow. And so what I recognize in a radical self-honesty is that actually, no, I don't want an easy life. No, I don't want comfort. What I want is an adventure. What I want is a challenge. What I want is to meet myself, is to face myself and explore those self-imposed limitations that are pushing away the next level of discovery that opens me up to experiencing even more love, compassion, and freedom. And again, examining the journey and seeing that that prize came by way of encountering difficulty. And if more expansion, so to speak, is what I crave, then clearly the avenue is to become more open to difficulty. And it's not so much the difficulty of doing what other people want me to do. It's the difficulty of getting in touch with myself and honoring my own heart and my own sincerity. Because my goodness, I would say that that is the biggest difficulty of all. I don't find that the difficulty is in living life or dealing with other people. The difficulty is in meeting myself. And this is even more profoundly clear the more you realize that you are not experiencing the world, you are not experiencing other people, you are experiencing reflections of yourself. And so what you think is difficult out there is really just encountering yourself out there. It's like you're not hearing what other people say, you're hearing your interpretation of what people say. So if somebody says something that's bothering you, you're bothering yourself by the way you're interpreting it, right? So you're meeting that aspect of yourself that believes that interpretation. And so the world being the world and other people being other people is just serving as a landscape that allows me to see myself. And you know, even in engaging a project, a difficult project, again, you're not so much experiencing the difficulty of that project. You're experiencing your difficulty in relationship to that project. Right? Because there's a great comedy here how in most things they're just incredibly simple. Right? Like even as it relates to building a business, in some regard, it's incredibly simple. Like you understand how this needs to be done. Oh, I do this and I do this and I do this. Okay, that's simple. But is it easy? No. And why is it not easy? Because you're in the way. Right? Because you have so many misunderstandings and assumptions and beliefs and self-defeating patterns that perceivably limit you from fully showing up and doing the thing that you need to do. And of course, when you show up and you encounter those difficulties, then those confusions are staring at you right in the face. And same with relationships, right? In one way, you can say relationships are very, very, very simple. You're just hanging out. But what's the difficulty? The difficulty is encountering those parts of yourself that you don't want to encounter. And this pointer towards seeing that you're not experiencing anything out there and you're just experiencing yourself, for me, is a great release that lets go of the world, lets go of other people, lets go of the project, in realizing that, oh, this isn't about them or that. This is about me seeing things more clearly. And so whatever this thing is out here that's showing up, and if I'm bothered by it, then that's the perfect opportunity for me to see something, right? That struggle, that confrontation with some aspect of yourself is the opportunity to grow. Again, if you look at your past experiences of profound growth, it came by meeting that sort of obstacle in yourself. And of course, we run away from it as long as we can. We hide from it. We distract ourselves from it. We numb ourselves. But sooner or later, we have to meet it. And it's only until we actually meet it where there's some real growth that can start to take place. You know what this reminds me of when self-love becomes self-sabotage? And I'm just using this illustration because it's an illustration, so don't read too much into it. And I have to say this from a male perspective to be safe. It's like when you go through a relationship breakup, and let's just say hypothetically, I went through a relationship breakup and it was super painful. And then I get together with all my buddies and they tell me comforting stories about how she was terrible anyway. Right? It's like they're comforting me to help me feel better, but they're not helping me take any accountability for my own creation of what took place. Do you see how easy we can do that, even in a self-dialogue, where we can comfort ourselves in some way, blame the circumstance, blame the other person, which completely avoids looking at yourself. And in appearances, it seems like your friends are helping you. Maybe there's a time and place for that, which is weird, but I think it's a really weird thing to comfort yourself by finding something to blame, or comforting yourself by finding excuses to not take total ownership of your experience. Because again, here's the thing, my friends, and I mean, this applies to everything. If I'm encountering life circumstance and I'm disturbed, that's only my own doing. And you can see life however you want to see it. I'm just sharing how I see it here. If I'm experiencing disturbance, if I'm experiencing the lack of love, compassion, and freedom, that's my own doing. And so if I say that it's the doing of something else, then I have zero chance of learning how I created that for myself. Right? Do you see how it's so easy to say, oh, it was just that. Now I can go back to being unconscious. But when I see that it's impossible that it's that, then I have to be honest with myself. In what way am I creating this? In what way am I perpetuating this? And you see, that's not always a fun conversation. And it'd be very easy to, on the surface, say that it's not loving, right? Because these radical self-honest conversations we have with ourselves, where maybe in some form you're coming to terms with a very real dissatisfaction with yourself and how you're showing up, that's not always a pretty conversation. But can you see how genuinely being honest with yourself is the highest form of self-love? Right? And if you're genuinely dissatisfied about how you're showing up because you're avoiding what's important, because you are shying away from opportunities, because you're afraid, right? If you're running around like someone who's not embodying their real potential or power, maybe it's appropriate that you're dissatisfied with yourself, right? Maybe you do need to have a really honest conversation with yourself and say, what the hell are you doing here? Is this really how you want to spend your life? Is this really good for you? Is this really what you want? And again, you can have these different tones to that. Like you can have a tone where it's like, to ask these questions, be like, oh, it doesn't really matter. But it does matter, doesn't it? Right? Like, doesn't it really matter to honor yourself and to honor what's sincere? Right? Especially if you have this one life and you've been gifted this opportunity to essentially go play and to sing your own song. Are you really not going to let yourself do that? And wait, what are your excuses? What are your reasons for not doing that? Can you be honest with yourself about those reasons so you can see how dumb those reasons are? And what happens if you find out those reasons are dumb? You're going to realize you don't have any excuses. People don't want to see that. They want to hold on to their excuses. They want to hold on to their reasons for why they're not showing up in the way that they really want to show up. And I see that comment that says, it's not my doing. I've been put aside by some people who I thought I can trust. Now, again, see how you want to see, but I'm going to imagine I'm saying that and I call bullshit. Because the thing that is my own doing is my interpretation of all of that. Right? Say I trust somebody to do something and they don't do it. Okay, am I disturbed by that? Okay, if I look at why I'm disturbed, I'm creating a bunch of meanings that don't really mean that. And I'm believing those meanings. Because in another way, what does it mean, like outside of your own creation of it, what does it mean when someone doesn't do what you want them to do? It doesn't mean anything. It means whatever you turn it into. You can see it as a problem or you can see it as an opportunity. And what most people do, because they're relying on other people for their worth and value, when somebody doesn't show up or do what you wanted them to do, you interpret it as meaning that you're less than, and then you have a pity party about it for a week or 2 months or 6 months and don't do anything at all while you're lamenting the fact that other people don't do what you want them to do when that's not what life's about anyway. Right? So you got your illusion crushed. That other people aren't here to be your servants. What does that have to do with you showing up? What does that have to do with you learning? What does that have to do with you growing and making progress and moving in a direction that resonates with you? That doesn't have anything to do with other people. Nothing at all. And most notably, especially in social and relational interactions, and we won't go too deep into this, but maybe I'll just point to it. When you have encounters with other people that really piss you off, you're seeing an aspect of yourself that you have not extended love and compassion to. The ways that we judge other people are only possible because we judge ourselves that way. It's like if you don't just let people be free to be themselves, it's because you don't let yourself be free to be yourself. You know what? It's like I love doing this. I love it when people cancel plans with me because it reminds me of the freedom that it's okay to cancel plans. And my worth and value isn't wrapped up in the plans. And so it's, again, it doesn't matter where I think I'm going. It doesn't matter so much that the project goes how I want it to go. What matters is who I'm becoming in the process. That's more in the realm of what I can control. But do you see how we do this? We attach our identity to these outcomes. Right? Like for example, if you put your trust in someone and they don't end up being how you want them to be, it's so easy to equate that to meaning that you're less than, that something's wrong with you, or they don't like you, or you're being rejected, right? You're tying your worth and value up in that other person or in the outcome. You're looking for yourself in the world, which again points back to what I was talking about earlier, where the path of trying to be what everybody else wants you to be. And the reason we're doing that is because you want the world to love you. And then we have to keep doing that until we see that that's not going anywhere at all. You know, I'm inviting, and it might be just too intense for some, and I get that, and my playful apologies, but not really. I'm really speaking to a radical self accountability, an experiential accountability, where it's recognized that this whole experience I'm having is my own creation. And I'm not talking about some hippy dippy, ungrounded sort of way like that exists out in the cosmos. I'm talking about a very grounded recognition that I'm not experiencing something out there. I'm experiencing what I am. I'm experiencing what exists on the inside. And there's no escaping that for me. It's too obvious. It's like no matter how much I want to blame something or blame another person, it can't take root because it's so false. I've seen it too many times. There's no way that that can be true. Tony says, I have a child with Down syndrome and struggle with his behavior. He is uncontrollable and I find it challenging to father him. Please shed some light on that. You know, what immediately rises for me in that, and again, I'm just sharing my reflection here, which may or may not be relevant for you. I just consider this as a teacher, right? Like if this is the experience you're having, it's an experience that is a teacher. And so the first thing I do is I remove any resistance to it. I remove any thinking it should have been another way. It's like, this is what it is. This is the teacher. And so in that, I turn towards it rather than turning away from it. I turn towards it and say, okay, if this is the teacher, if this is the way it is, what is the opportunity here for me? What is there to learn in this? And again, I don't really know your experience, but for me, the teacher that I see in that is, to what degree can I own my difficulty and not project it on him? Like, if I keep encountering challenges, how much of those challenges are being interpreted in a way that blames his circumstance, which I now think is my circumstance? And how honest can I be with myself about where the difficulty really is? What am I meeting in myself that is so difficult to meet? And how can that be resolved by allowing myself to be more honest? How can that be resolved by allowing myself to be more vulnerable? Because that's what I see these challenges and many like it are there to do. They're there to strip away the facade, strip away who we think we're supposed to be, strip away all of our expectations about life, and get in touch with the raw reality of ourselves as a human being and allow that rawness to be seen. And can I use this struggle and challenge as an opportunity to express a new depth of love for the other in this circumstance? Right? Because again, as you recognize more and more that my struggle is not in the other person, my struggle is in meeting myself, then I remove the blame towards the other person, and I realize that the way that that other person is actually helping me meet myself. And so fast forward, that leads to some sort of conclusion which says, "Oh my God, thank you for being how you are. I thought you were in my way, and now I see you are the way. Thank you for helping to destroy these illusions that I have about myself. Thank you for showing me what's actually important, even though it's been painful and brutal in the process." And I can imagine that there's some sort of vision that you might have about how you want to show up, how you would like to love, not so much how you could control the situation, right? Not so much how I could make this other human do what I want them to do, but to show up in a way that responds without blame, without withholding love, to be more present. And I imagine some way that that version is representative of a more conscious version of yourself. And if that is what is desired, then your path to get there is to encounter the unconscious parts of yourself, to encounter where it's difficult, find out why it's difficult, and take tiny steps towards a more conscious response. And, I said something there that's just so key, and I want to repeat it. The vision isn't about so much what I get in the world. It's not about hopefully this person being different. The vision is, how can I show up regardless of how it is? Because you see, Tony, like this struggle that you're talking about, it's, at least from, what I see, it's no different from the nature of every other struggle. And we just encounter the same lesson again and again and again, just taking different shapes. And fundamentally, this lesson is to see things more clearly. Because there is a version of seeing that is so co opted by the ego, and it confuses everything. And that's the proverbial battle that we're fighting. We're battling our way through the stickiness of the ego to find the light of what's more true. And in doing that, you have to confront the dragon, which is the ego, which is what wants to blame everything. Tony says, "Oh my God, thank you. I've been missing the mark. I'm quite ashamed of my behavior at times." Your response is beautiful. I'm glad to hear that that resonated. And in the realm of what's true, there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, but that means that you don't need to be ashamed of being ashamed. And so if the sincerity is that there's shame there, then that's cool too. That's fine. We can be honest about that. But my invitation would be not so much to wallow in a sort of self defeated vibe, but to see that, holy shit, this is something for me to learn. This is something for me to grow. And especially in relationships, it's such a great opportunity to communicate that, right? Like if you show up in a way where you're blaming the other person or whatever, and you see this insight and you feel ashamed about it, do you see the opportunity to communicate that to the other person? Like, holy shit, I didn't even realize I was doing this, and I see that I'm doing it, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that that's what came out of me. And thank you for being there in the way that you were, that helped me to see this. And especially as it relates to parenting, that's one of the greatest lessons that you can teach your children, is to be radically honest about your own perceived shortcomings so that they know that it's okay, and it's okay to be honest about it. Because again, it's in that self honesty that allows us to really, really, really look at it. And it's through looking at it, truly seeing it, that we're able to grow through it. But if we hide from that honesty, if we don't want to admit what's really there, then we're simply saying we don't want to look at it, which means we're not going to grow. And it's just going to be a pattern that continues to play itself out, even if it plays itself out in different ways. Like you can mask it in one way, you can numb it in one way, but it's going to pop up somewhere else. So the invitation of this time together, if you're open for it, is explore a raw intensity within yourself to just get radically honest. Not so much as an expectation of how you should be or shouldn't be, but just a raw intensity of how it is you really feel about yourself. The raw intensity of where you are cutting yourself short, where you're not showing up because you're afraid, where you're hiding from how you really feel. That's the most loving thing you can do. I mean, the truth is love, right? That's the whole thing. Even in spirituality, we call it love, but what it really is just the truth. And in the truth, there's no judgment. And that's often why it's considered to be loving, because it's empty of judgment. So empty yourself of all the judgment for how you really feel about yourself and just let it be voiced. Like, because there's this landscape of no judgment, it means that there's no judgment for your judgment. So let your judgment out. The spiritual pointer that there is no judgment doesn't say you shouldn't have judgment. It's a landscape that says there's no judgment so that you can finally breathe and let out whatever is within you. Right? If you don't let out the judgment, then you're never going to see it, which means you can't see through it and you can't move on. And it's so common, especially in spiritual circles, to just hide all that crap, suppress it, pretend like it's not there. And for me, spirituality isn't about being spiritual. It's about really being human, right? Because you see the foundation of all that is this empty landscape that loves unconditionally. And that is simply a permission slip to let go and fully be alive. And in fully being alive, there's so many aspects of ourselves that want to be explored. Some of it pretty, some of it not. But it all goes together. Right? It's like the foundation of love in life is what allows the different seasons to be the different seasons. Right? It's not, oh, it's all love, therefore there's always going to be a rainbow outside. Oh, it's all love, so there's never going to be a storm. No, it's all love so that everything can be what it is. That's freedom. Freedom isn't, I'm free, so it's never going to rain again. No. Real freedom is, if it's raining, it's okay that it's raining. So if I'm angry, it's okay that I'm angry. If I'm ashamed, it's okay that I'm ashamed. If I'm super judgmental, it's okay. There's something for me to see there. You see, the spiritual invitation is to discover a big, deep breath that allows everything that's being hidden within to finally come out and be seen, which is like this great sense of relaxation. Like, I don't have to be pretending anymore. And oh my God, what a great thing to discover in this world of pretending. Right? I can just be what I am. I can do what I'm here to do. I don't have to pretend to be what somebody else wants me to be. I can let go of the world. I can let go of other people. I can let them be what they are. Lee. What is not what I think it is. Is that referring to my quote? It is what it is, but it's never what I think it is. That's one of my favorites. All right, lovelies. I was going to say that I'm going to go back to work now, but I guess this is my work too. I'm going to switch gears. Yeah, And you guys, we all know this stuff, right? What I'm pointing to, whether in an elegant or a chaotic sort of way, is attempting to spark a remembrance. Because I understand that in this human journey, even for me, we get caught up in it. We get caught up in the narratives. We get caught up in the dream. We get caught up in the conditioning, and it takes us away. And that's part of it, and it's fine. But that's what I love about this sort of space where we can come back here and just check in and see a little bit more clearly and then go back outside and play. And you'll get lost again. And then we come back together and that's what I feel like my role is as far as what I'm here for and my play is to, well, I've said it 1,000 times, but it's to hold space so that love can be seen. And the way that that illustrates itself is to, hold a space like this, not so much, on Insight Timer, but to hold a space like this where people can check in, see things more clearly, and then go take that clarity back to their lives. But don't be under the assumption that you're going to see it and it's going to fix everything and it's going to be easy and comfortable. No, that's not the point. We are genuinely engaged in an adventure. It's going to be scary. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. And that's okay. But my invitation is to open to that adventure, to open to that struggle so that we can learn from it rather than hiding from it. It's always the perfect time, no matter what age you are. It's always now. All right, my dears, anything else? Okay, I'm going to bounce out. Thanks for your donations if you feel inspired to do so. I imagine I'll be back sometime next week, same time probably, but we'll see. Other than that, aloha. Cheers to the beauty that you already are.